Life becomes far more manageable the moment you stop fighting what is and start engaging with it directly. Everything begins with a simple, sometimes uncomfortable shift, embracing reality as it truly is, not as you wish it to be, not as you fear it might be, but as it stands right now. When you develop the courage to open your eyes to the truth, you gain the power to shape your future with intention instead of illusion. You see, reality doesn't care about your opinions. It doesn't bend for your preferences. It doesn't adjust itself to accommodate your desires. Reality just is, and when you learn to work with it honestly, rationally, and openly, you unlock a level of clarity that very few people ever reach. Most people live their lives running away from the truth because the truth often threatens their ego. It forces them to confront imperfections, mistakes, and uncomfortable facts, but that discomfort is the birthplace of strength. The people who grow the most are those who confront their weaknesses without flinching. They say, "This is what's real, and now, what am I going to do about it?" That is where transformation begins. To embrace reality, you must make truth your ally. You must seek it relentlessly, even when it contradicts your beliefs, especially when it contradicts your beliefs, because it's in those moments that you grow, not by defending your assumptions, but by shattering them and replacing them with better ones. Every problem in your life is demanding one thing from you: understanding, not denial, not avoidance, understanding, and once you understand it fully, without distortion or ego, you can deal with it effectively. Problems are like signals. They are feedback from reality. They are pointing you toward your next stage of growth. When you feel pain, frustration, or confusion, don't turn away, lean into it. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? What truth is this revealing? Because every problem hides a principle that, once learned, strengthens you forever. To deal with reality, you need a practical system. You need tools, not wishful thinking, clear thinking, honest reflection, meaningful goals, and the discipline to align your actions with the truth. When something isn't working, you adjust. When life pushes back, you adapt. When your plan fails, you make a better one, because dealing with reality isn't about perfection. It's about continuous improvement. And continuous improvement requires humility. It demands that you accept that you don't have all the answers, that you will make mistakes, that you will fall short. But humility isn't weakness. Humility is the foundation of learning. It's what allows you to replace outdated assumptions with better understanding. It's what keeps you evolving. See the world clearly, see yourself clearly, and see others clearly. Don't distort people into heroes or villains. Understand their motivations, their strengths, and their weaknesses. Understand that everyone, including you, is shaped by experiences, biases, and blind spots. When you see people realistically, you can work with them more effectively. You can build better relationships, solve conflicts with greater maturity, and lead with deeper wisdom. The most successful people aren't the ones who avoid reality. They're the ones who confront it earlier, understand it deeper, and respond to it better. They take responsibility instead of making excuses. They learn instead of blaming. They adapt instead of resisting. They don't see obstacles as unfair. They see them as part of the journey. You can move through life passively, reacting to whatever happens. Or you can move through life intentionally, shaping your path by meeting reality head on. The choice is yours. When you embrace reality and deal with it, you gain a superpower: clarity. You stop wasting energy resisting what already exists and start investing that energy into building what is possible. You stop lying to yourself. You stop relying on hope alone. You stop waiting for circumstances to change. You become the cause of change. Reality is never the enemy. Your refusal to see it is. So today, make a commitment to yourself. Face the truth. Seek the truth. Use the truth, not because it's easy, but because it's the only path that leads to genuine progress. Embrace reality, not selectively, but completely, deal with it, not emotionally, but intelligently, and watch your life transform from confusion and frustration into clarity, strength, and purpose. This is how you build a life that works. This is how you grow into someone wiser, tougher, and more capable. This is how you rise, not by escaping reality, but by mastering it. Facing reality as it truly is may sound simple, but it is one of the most difficult disciplines a person can develop. Most people spend their lives living in a state of subtle denial, avoiding truths that challenge their image, their beliefs, or their comfort. Yet the moment you choose to open your eyes fully, without filtering what you see through ego or emotion, you begin the process of real transformation. Reality is the ultimate teacher. It delivers honest feedback, unvarnished lessons, and insights that you cannot get from wishful thinking. But to receive those lessons, you must be willing to confront what is actually happening around you and within you. The first step is letting go of your attachment to how you wish things were. Many people cling to fantasies, hoping circumstances will change on their own. They hold onto broken strategies, outdated assumptions, or comforting illusions because facing the truth feels threatening. But truth is never the enemy. The real danger is refusing to see things clearly. When you ignore reality, you allow problems to grow in the dark. When you face it, you bring everything into the light where you can understand it and ultimately improve it. Seeing reality clearly requires developing an inner toughness, a willingness to look at situations directly, even when they expose your weaknesses or force you to rethink your path. This is not about being harsh with yourself. It's about being honest. Honesty is liberating. When you realize that you no longer need to protect your ego, you gain the freedom to grow. Instead of defending your errors, you study them. Instead of denying your limitations, you acknowledge them so you can overcome them. That shift alone creates an entirely different trajectory for your life. The clearer you see reality, the better decisions you make. When you know where you stand, your strengths, your gaps, your opportunities, and your risks, you can act intelligently. You stop wasting energy reacting emotionally to problems and instead use that energy to understand and solve them. You stop blaming external forces and start navigating them. Reality becomes something you work with, not something you run from. But facing reality is not a one-time act. It is a lifelong commitment. You must keep examining your beliefs, your habits, your relationships, and your patterns with fresh eyes. What was true yesterday may not be true today. Life changes, markets change, people change, and you must be willing to adapt. Those who cling to outdated versions of reality inevitably fall behind. Those who update their view of the world continuously stay ahead. Seeing reality clearly also means accepting the laws of nature, the patterns of cause and effect, and the constraints of the world you live in. You cannot bend the rules of reality, but when you understand those rules deeply, you can use them to your advantage. You become more strategic, more resilient, and more capable of shaping outcomes. Ultimately, facing reality is an act of empowerment. It removes confusion, reduces unnecessary suffering, and reveals the path forward. The more truthful you are with yourself and the world, the more control you gain over your future. Real strength comes not from avoiding the truth, but from confronting it, and using it to build a life based on clarity, wisdom, and deliberate action. Making truth your ally is one of the most powerful decisions you can make in life. Most people claim they value truth, but in reality, they value the preservation of their ego far more. They say they want clarity, yet they run from the very information that would give them that clarity. The truth is often inconvenient. It challenges your beliefs, exposes your blind spots, and forces you to confront parts of yourself you may prefer to ignore. But if you want to live effectively, if you want to grow, improve, and solve meaningful problems, you must learn to treat truth not as a threat, but as a strategic resource. Truth is the foundation of every good decision. When your understanding of the world is distorted, your decisions become misaligned with reality. And when your decisions are misaligned with reality, they inevitably lead to frustration and failure. That's why making truth your ally is essential. It gives you the most accurate map possible. Without an accurate map, no amount of effort will put you on the right path. With one, even imperfect action moves you forward. To make truth your ally, you must become radically open to learning. Not the kind of learning that reinforces what you already believe, but the kind that challenges your assumptions. When you encounter new information that contradicts your viewpoint, don't defend your old position. Examine it. Ask yourself, what if I'm wrong? What can I learn from this? What is this revealing that I couldn't see before? These questions expand your perspective, and perspective is the raw material of wisdom. One of the most important habits you can develop is seeking out people who see things differently than you do. Not to argue with them, but to learn from them. Every person you meet knows something you don't. Every person carries a unique set of experiences, biases, and insights. When you surround yourself with honest thinkers who aren't afraid to challenge you, you gain access to truths you would never discover on your own. This is how you eliminate blind spots, through a deliberate openness to perspectives that stretch your understanding. Making truth your ally also requires the courage to listen to feedback without defensiveness. Most people hear criticism and immediately focus on protecting their feelings. But if you can separate your sense of self, worth from your need to be right, feedback becomes a gift. It becomes data, valuable information that helps you refine your approach. The most successful people aren't afraid of being wrong, they're afraid of staying wrong. That shift in mindset makes all the difference, and you must also be truthful with yourself. You cannot build a strong life on top of self-deception. If you habitually hide your weaknesses, justify your mistakes, or pretend your results are better than they actually are, you rob yourself of the insights that would elevate your performance. Self-honesty demands humility, but it rewards you with clarity. Ultimately, truth leads to alignment. When you align your understanding with reality, your actions become more effective, your decisions more intelligent, and your path more purposeful. Making truth your ally is not always comfortable, but it is always transformative. It allows you to step out of illusion and into power, real, grounded, actionable power. Most people see problems as interruptions, unwelcome obstacles that disrupt the flow of their lives. But if you look deeper, you'll discover that every problem is actually a messenger. It's reality's way of pointing out something you need to understand, something essential for your growth. Problems are signals. They highlight weaknesses you haven't addressed, skills you haven't developed, or truths you haven't yet confronted. When you shift your mindset from avoiding problems to studying them, you unlock one of the most powerful advantages a person can have, the ability to convert setbacks into progress. The first step is learning not to react emotionally when a problem appears. Fear, frustration, denial, these reactions cloud your thinking and prevent you from seeing the underlying lesson. Instead, aim to become curious. Ask yourself, why did this happen? What can I learn from this? What is this problem revealing about reality that I didn't understand before? This mindset turns problems into data, and data is incredibly valuable because it helps you understand how the world actually works. When you examine your problems objectively, patterns begin to emerge. You'll notice recurring issues, things that show up again and again because you never fully addressed the root cause. Maybe the problem is a habit, a belief, a relationship dynamic, or a structural flaw in the way you approach challenges. Whatever it is, problems expose it with remarkable clarity. If you study them deeply enough, you'll find principles that not only solve the problem you're facing now, but also prevent similar ones from arising in the future. But to extract these principles, you need to detach your identity from the problem. Many people take problems personally, as if encountering difficulties means something is wrong with them, but problems don't reflect your worth, they reflect your understanding. If you react defensively, you miss the lesson. If you remain open, you gain insight. The people who grow the fastest are those who analyze their failures with the same calm they analyze their successes. They see pain as information, not as judgment. Problems also reveal the consequences of your decisions. They show you the gap between how you think the world works and how it actually works. This gap is incredibly important because within it lies the path to better decision making. Every time you solve a problem intelligently, you become more capable. Every time you ignore one, you plant the seeds for something bigger and more difficult later. One of the most empowering realizations you can have is that problems are not just obstacles. They are invitations to rise to a higher level. They demand better thinking, greater discipline, improved systems, or deeper humility. They force you to evolve. In fact, the quality of your life is largely determined by how effectively you identify, interpret, and solve problems. People who run from problems stay stuck. People who confront them early move ahead. People who learn from them become unstoppable. Ultimately, problems are the curriculum of life. They teach you what the next chapter requires. They challenge you to refine your approach, strengthen your character, and expand your understanding. When you see problems as opportunities wrapped in difficulty, everything changes. Instead of fearing them, you value them. Instead of avoiding them, you seek the lessons they hold. And once you learn to do that consistently, you'll find that every problem you face becomes a stepping stone toward wisdom, resilience, and meaningful success. Dealing with reality effectively requires more than desire. It requires a systematic approach. Most people navigate life reactively, responding to events as they arise without any structured method for understanding them or improving their actions. But if you want consistent results, clarity of thought, and long-term success, you must build a process, a reliable framework that helps you evaluate situations, make decisions, learn from outcomes, and refine your strategy over time. Systems liberate you from impulsive thinking and emotional decision making. They give you structure, discipline, and repeatable pathways for handling life's complexities. A systematic approach begins with clear thinking. Before making any major decision, you need to step back, detach emotionally, and analyze the situation objectively. Ask yourself what the real facts are, what is actually happening, not what you wish or fear is happening. This requires eliminating distortions, assumptions, and biases. Think of yourself as a scientist studying a problem. Your job isn't to defend a position, it's to understand the truth. When you take emotions out of the equation, you gain a level of clarity that most people never achieve. Once you understand the situation, the next step is defining your goals precisely. Vague goals lead to vague actions. Clear goals lead to focused, intelligent decisions. Ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve? What does success look like? What principles should guide my decisions in this situation? When you know your destination, the path becomes easier to map. Without clear goals, you drift. With them, you design your way forward. From there, you must confront the obstacles standing between you and your goals. This is where the systematic approach becomes powerful. You list the problems, diagnose their root causes, and break them down into parts you can solve. Don't settle for surface explanations. Dig deep, ask why, repeatedly until you reach the fundamental issue. Most failures come from misdiagnosing the true cause of the problem. When you identify the root cause accurately, solutions become far more effective. After diagnosing the problem, create a plan, not an emotional reaction, not a vague intention. A real plan, one with steps, timelines, and priorities. A system requires structure, and structure requires commitment. Decide what actions must be taken, in what order, and by whom. And just as importantly, decide what you will stop doing. Eliminating ineffective habits and strategies is often just as important as adding new ones. Then comes disciplined execution. Even the best system is worthless without consistent follow-through. You must execute your plan with integrity, track your progress, measure your results, and adjust as you learn. Reality will always give you feedback, and when your system incorporates that feedback, it becomes stronger over time. The goal isn't perfection, it's constant refinement. A great system evolves with experience. Finally, you must review your outcomes regularly. Reflect on what worked, what didn't, and why. This reflection transforms action into wisdom. When you review your decisions systematically, patterns emerge. Patterns in your behavior, your thinking, and your results. These patterns hold insights that elevate your future performance. A systematic approach turns life from a series of random events into a process of deliberate learning and improvement. It gives you a stable foundation in a chaotic world. It allows you to deal with reality not with overwhelm or confusion, but with clarity, purpose, and mastery. Over time, your system becomes a powerful engine that propels you toward greater effectiveness, resilience, and achievement. Humility is one of the most underrated strengths a person can develop, yet it sits at the foundation of all meaningful growth. To learn, improve, and evolve, you must be willing to accept that you don't have all the answers, that your perspective, while valuable, is incomplete. Humility is not about diminishing yourself. It's about recognizing reality. You are a work in progress. The moment you believe you know everything, you stop learning. The moment you stop learning, you begin to fall behind. Humility keeps you open, flexible, and capable of constant improvement. One of the greatest challenges people face is their attachment to being right. They often confuse being wrong with being inadequate, and that fear makes them cling desperately to their opinions, even when those opinions no longer align with reality. But the people who grow the most are the ones who detach their ego from their ideas. They see being wrong not as a failure, but as a critical step toward greater understanding. When you embrace the possibility that your thinking might be flawed, you unlock the ability to refine it. You trade defensiveness for awareness, pride for progress. Humility is also essential for recognizing your weaknesses. Everyone has them. Everyone has blind spots, limitations, and gaps in their skill set. But most people hide from them, pretending they don't exist. This denial is costly. You cannot solve a weakness you refuse to acknowledge. When you admit your weaknesses honestly, you gain the opportunity to improve them, or build systems and partnerships that compensate for them. Weaknesses aren't threats, they're information. They tell you where to focus your learning. They direct you toward the next level of your development. Another critical aspect of humility is the ability to learn from others. No matter how experienced or intelligent you are, every person around you knows something you don't. Humility allows you to value the insights, perspectives, and feedback of others. It frees you from the illusion that your view is always the best view. When you listen deeply, without the need to dominate, defend, or appear superior, you gain access to wisdom you could never generate on your own. Surrounding yourself with thoughtful, honest people who challenge your thinking is one of the greatest gifts humility brings. Humility also strengthens relationships. It makes you more empathetic, more understanding, and more patient. It allows you to acknowledge when you are wrong, apologize when necessary, and collaborate more effectively. People trust those who are honest about their imperfections. They respect those who are willing to learn, to adapt, and to grow. In a world where many try to project confidence by pretending to be flawless, true humility becomes a rare and powerful differentiator. Perhaps the most transformational aspect of humility is that it aligns you with truth. When you strip away ego, you see reality more clearly. You no longer distort facts to protect your feelings. You no longer ignore feedback because it stings. You no longer resist change simply because it challenges your identity. Humility puts you in a constant state of learning, a state where improvement is natural and continuous. Ultimately, humility is not weakness. It is strength in its most mature form. It gives you the flexibility to adapt, the clarity to see yourself honestly, and the wisdom to learn from every experience. It keeps you grounded, curious, and open to the truths that lead to growth. When you build your life on humility, you build it on a foundation of truth, and that foundation can carry you further than confidence alone ever could. Taking responsibility and acting with purpose is the dividing line between people who move through life passively and those who shape their own destiny. Many individuals drift, waiting for circumstances to improve, waiting for opportunities to appear, waiting for motivation to strike. But waiting is not a strategy. It is a slow surrender. Progress happens when you decide to take ownership, not just of your successes, but of your failures, your habits, your decisions, and the direction of your life. Responsibility is not about blame. It is about empowerment. It is recognizing that while you cannot control everything that happens to you, you can always control how you respond. When you take responsibility, you shift from being a passenger to being the driver. You stop outsourcing your future to luck, circumstances, or other people. You stop making excuses that shield you from discomfort but also prevent you from evolving. Instead, you acknowledge that your outcomes are the product of your choices, your beliefs, and your actions. This mindset might feel heavy at first because it removes the safety net of excuses, but it ultimately frees you. Once you accept that your life is in your hands, you gain the power to change it intentionally. Acting with purpose begins with clarity. You must know what you want, why you want it, and what principles guide your decisions. Too many people wander without direction, pulled by impulses or external pressures. When you don't have purposeful goals, you become reactive, easily influenced, and prone to drifting. But when your goals are clear and rooted in something meaningful, they become a compass that keeps you oriented, even when the path becomes difficult. Purpose turns effort into progress, obstacles into challenges, and setbacks into temporary detours rather than dead ends. Once you've defined your purpose, action becomes the bridge between intention and reality. Purpose without action is merely aspiration. Real progress requires disciplined execution, doing the work consistently, even when you don't feel like it, even when obstacles appear, even when the results are not immediate. Purpose gives you direction, but action gives you momentum. Once you start moving, you learn, you adjust, and you grow. Momentum is a powerful force. It transforms effort into advancement and advancement into confidence. Taking responsibility also means confronting your mistakes early. Successful people are not those who avoid mistakes. They are those who identify them quickly, learn from them deeply, and correct them decisively. When something isn't working, you don't deny it or rationalize it. You analyze it. You ask, what can I learn from this? How do I need to adapt? What needs to change? Every mistake holds data that reveals how reality works. When you use that data well, you convert failures into insights and insights into better decisions. Another critical aspect of acting with purpose is managing your emotions. Emotions are powerful, but they can mislead you if they dominate your decisions. Taking responsibility requires developing the ability to observe your emotions, understand them, and choose your actions based on principles rather than impulses. This emotional discipline keeps you grounded when things go wrong and keeps you humble when things go right. Ultimately, taking responsibility and acting with purpose turns you into a proactive creator of your life rather than a passive observer. It aligns your daily actions with your long-term vision. It makes your decisions more intentional, your habits more meaningful, and your progress more consistent. When you take responsibility, you claim the steering wheel of your life. When you act with purpose, you drive it toward a future defined not by chance, but by clarity, discipline, and deliberate choice.